morning, Raj. We have some breaking news right now as we have learned that when former President Trump will soon will be going to trial in the federal January 6th case. This is a live look at the federal courthouse in D.C., where Judge Tanya Chutkan has just announced that case will be held March 4th. Special counsel Jack Smith has requested an early January start date. As you can see, though, it is going to be March 4th. And in other news related to the president, we've also learned that the president and the former president and all 18 of his co-defendants will be arraigned in the Georgia case next Wednesday, September 6th. It's a lot of puzzle pieces. That is Trump's fourth arraignment since the end of March. Trump and the 18 others are accused of meddling in Georgia's 2020 vote count. And right now, a judge in Georgia is hearing arguments to determine if former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows can move his case from state court to federal court. Meadows has already taken the stand, so we'll be watching that. We've been watching what's happening in D.C. There's a lot going on. So we do now want to speak with some of our political team members with their perspective on all of this. We have political director Andrew Rafferty, political correspondents Kevin Cirilli, and Avajoy Burnett. Thank you all for being here. Let's start first with the breaking news that just happened with the March 4th start date to that January 6th federal case. Kevin, I want to go to you because we were just talking about this before the break. It's going to be the day before Super Tuesday, unless anything changes again. What a week that's going to be.
Well, I'll play the part of a reporter right now. The Republicans are going to say that this is purely politics, that for a court case of this magnitude to be set one day before Super Tuesday, that this is a politicized process. Democrats are going to say Lady Justice doesn't care about a campaign calendar, and that this case needs to be set and that the public deserves to hear with regards to these charges. The former president should have to face himself for the attack on the Capitol. But objectively speaking, forget the politics, objectively speaking, this is a devastating blow to Trump's general election and general electability argument, given that this is the one case that sources directly close to the former president are most concerned about. Not necessarily, albeit some concern in a primary season, but definitely in a general election. When you go to the collar counties of Philadelphia, for example, or you go to the more swing districts in Arizona, Maricopa County in Arizona, for example, McCain country, January 6th doesn't play well. And so the fact that he could be convicted or even on trial for January 6th is a devastating blow to have that for the could-be standard bearer of the Republican Party.
Yeah, now, Avajoy, I do want to go to you just to get your thoughts on how these decisions were pieced together, because we do know that all these judges do kind of need to coordinate with each other to pick a date, but it's kind of in between what the special counsel wanted and what the president's lawyers asked for.
And I think this is much closer to what the prosecution wanted, because remember that Jack Smith's team, they requested a January 2nd trial date. But I want to take you inside the courtroom. Earlier today, our producer Sam Lisker was inside, and we were going through all of the notes that he was sending us. And there was really a back and forth, because John Lauro, the attorney for the former president, they said that they needed as much time as possible to adequately prepare. At one point, the judge told John Lauro to kind of calm it down a bit, because he was getting pretty fiery inside the courtroom when he said he has to go through all of these documents. And keep in mind the amount of documents that they are having to go through. The discovery here, the evidence here is more than 11 million pages. We got some updated numbers from inside that said it was more than 12 million. But the government is also saying that this is information that the former president already has. It's stuff that he's put out there in social media. It's things that have been put out by PAC. So he, along with his team, should be very familiar with this. Kevin is so right about the timing of all of this. It is an absolute blow for the defense team here, because remember, they wanted a trial date that is 2 years and 7 months away from this very date. 2 years, 7 months, and 6 days to be exact. So to give you an idea, this is like a major problem for the defense team, and it's only 2 months away from what the prosecution wanted here. So that's a win for them. I just quickly called a former federal prosecutor to get an idea of how reasonable or unreasonable this is, and he said they certainly should have enough time to get all of their ducks in a row to prepare for this. We know that the former president is well known to delay, and that is what we saw inside the courtroom today, but the Judge Tanya Chutkan, was not having it.
Yeah, clearly not. Andrew, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on what this kind of means for the bigger picture, because there's also stuff going on down here in Georgia today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the big takeaways from the impact on Donald Trump's political future is really looking forward to, as Kevin just mentioned, the general election. We've talked about how some of these legal battles will prevent Donald Trump from being on the campaign trail, but it's important to remember that his frequency on the campaign trail is already pretty sparse, at least compared to some of his Republican rivals. He doesn't need to spend months and months in the early primary states like Iowa and New Hampshire doing things like Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and some of his top contenders are doing. The impact of Trump flying in on his jet, having an airport hangar rally and flying out is already much bigger than what all these other candidates could do by spending weeks or even months in these states. And so it's not as impactful on the primary. Now, of course, there are other issues just that are beyond just where he physically is, and that's how voters react to these charges and anything that comes out in these court filings. But it is that general election impact. And of course, we're talking about this trial now potentially starting one day ahead of Super Tuesday. And that is a time when you want to be out on the campaign trail. But for his kind of strategy, he is somebody who knows very much how to get headlines, doesn't need to physically be anywhere. Of course, you'd rather not be tied up in a courthouse when you're running a campaign. But if you had to be, Donald Trump's in a pretty good position to both be able to be in front of voters as well as dealing with some of these legal issues.
And to add to that, it could help him on a Super Tuesday matchup, right? Because he's going to take Trump Force 1 and he's going to touch down in the most conservative parts of the states like he did back in 2016 and 2020, and he's going to land there and he's going to get all the local media, conservative paper press, as I call it, and the old school media, and that typically the consumers of are his base, and he's going to be able to rally the base in a crowded Republican field. So in a weird way, it could actually help him in a Super Tuesday Republican matchup. But to add to that, the biggest question for the Republican electorate is, do they have Trump scandal fatigue in the same way that the Democratic electorate had Hillary Clinton fatigue? And so right now, we just haven't seen that Trump fatigue hit the Republican side. But when you look at independent polling, it absolutely has hit amongst independent voters.
And something to keep in mind, come March 4th, we could have had the beginnings of this Georgia trial already started. We have the arraignment next week, and it's going to be on TV. People will be able to watch that. So people's opinions may be a little different come March based on what we have witnessed. We don't even know what it's going to look like. Ava Joy, could that change things?
That certainly could change things, and we're just getting some new reporting from inside the courthouse. Our producer there, Sam Lisker, said Judge Chutkan said she coordinated with the judge up in New York to ensure that this didn't interfere with the March 25th case there in New York. So this is something that we knew that could potentially be an issue. They had to juggle all of these cases on the former president's schedule to ensure that he has adequate time to prepare for all of them. And we're getting that confirmation now that the former president has or the judge has coordinated with other folks. And then we're hearing that some folks may be coming out, that's a possibility that the attorneys for the former president could be coming out of the courthouse. They went in at 9:22 this morning, according to our photographer here, and now it's about 2 hours later. And this hearing, it was relatively quick. And according to our producer inside, it was easy to understand, follow everything that was going on from both sides of the arguments that were made here. So yet again, another consequential moment in all of the cases that the former president is going to have to defend himself against.
All right, Andrew, any final words before we go?
Well, look, we're about to enter into a very weird period, a quieter period compared to what we saw over this summer. Now that the indictments are in, after we get past that arraignment in Georgia, this is going to kind of fall out of the headlines. People understandably might even forget about it. But once we hit the beginning of 2024, all of this is going to resurface. As we've hit on, it's hard for people at home to keep track of all these trials, all these accusations, these 91 counts. But once we hit March, I think a lot of it is going to be ramped up and it's going to be back at the forefront. It's going to lead to a potential campaign. If Donald Trump is still a candidate at that point, no reason to think he wouldn't be, a campaign unlike any other in American history.
All right, political director Andrew Rafferty and political correspondents Kevin Cerulli and Ava Joy. Ava Joy, I know there's some stuff going on, so please keep us posted if you find out anything new and let us know. In the meantime, we will continue to follow that coverage throughout the day here on Scripps News. Thanks you all. Thank you all.